back to the Daily Grind. Thanks for checking out the channel. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back pickle biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
What is up, full time family? Let's get to these UFC Fight Night North Carolina predictions. This is, I believe, a Fox Sports 1 card. Let me see. It is Charlotte, North Carolina, January 27th. It is on Fox Sports 1 prelims. Is this on Big Fox? It says Fox main card. Hold on one second. I believe this might be Big Fox. Oh no, okay, it's a fight. I'm not sure what the fuck's going on here. I'm about to have to Google this, bro. All right, Brunson, Jacare versus Brunson 2. All right, there we go. UFC on Fox. This is a Big Fox card. UFC on Fox 27. Okay, so this is gonna be on Big Fox. Glad I looked that up. I originally thought this was a Fox Sports 1 card. It is a dope main card, but it's a 4-fight main card, which is typical of the Big Fox cards. So yeah, this is gonna be on Big Fox. There's also gonna be Fox Sports 1 prelims, and of course, as always, UFC Fight Pass early prelims. So I'm just gonna do the Big Fox main card predictions, and you can see them here, but I'll walk you through why I picked these fights now. So we're gonna start with the first fight of the night, and I feel like I should mention, just because whenever I go 4-0 or 6-0 on my predictions, I let you know. Last week was our worst week ever as a channel on predictions. We did get the main event and the co-main event right and steal, but the 3 fights leading up to that, and I even did like an extra. I usually don't even do I only do the main card, but since the main card wasn't even announced yet, I did an extra prediction. We even got that joint wrong. But what happened was it was in Boston, and the Boston crowd really energized their native fighters, as we saw in the fight before the co-main event, where Calvin Kattar defeated, he upset Shane Burgos. Calvin Kattar was a Boston native. Shane Burgos was undefeated, and I picked Shane Burgos in that fight, but a lot of the Boston natives won their fights. And even though Stipe Miocic isn't really a Boston native, he had a lot of, the crowd was behind Stipe. He even got a win. So it was a big night for Boston, UFC 220. And also keep in mind, the day after, the Patriots, I believe, were playing in the playoffs in New England versus Jacksonville. So there was a really big Boston crowd, a lot of energy going into that fight, and it looked like it transitioned into the fights as a lot of the Boston natives got upsets at home. So UFC 220 was a fun night of fights. Let's get to this UFC on Big Fox, which is coming up next week, which is just 6 days away as of now. And now keep in mind that there's going to be 7 straight UFC events coming up for the next 7 weeks. There's a UFC event every week, and I don't think there's a Bellator event every week, but that's not even counting Bellator events. So we're going to be busy, but sounds fun to me. So let's get started with these predictions. First fight of the night on the UFC on Fox 27 main card is Drew Dober versus Frank Camacho. Now, if you were to place a bet, I would bet you that this is going to be fight of the night, as Frank Camacho has 2 fights in the UFC, and both of those were fight of the night. So 100% of his UFC fights have been fight of the night, and he's fighting Drew Dober, who's 3-1 in his last 4 fights, and his most recent 2 wins were both first round KO. So Frank Camacho coming in, similar. I don't want to say similar to Robbie Lawler, but he's been in wars in both of his fights. And I'm not talking, when I say Robbie Lawler, I'm not saying like the same caliber of opponents or anything like that. I'm just saying when he comes, he's coming to fight. It's going to be a great fight. And his most recent performance, he got a win over Damian Brown, and it was a back and forth battle, but he got the win. I believe it was split decision. His UFC debut was versus Li Jialang, who was on like a 4-fight winning streak right now, and so that was also fight of the night. So I'm really excited, and I'm a fan of Frank Camacho. I really wanted, if it was not Drew Dober, like if I wasn't going off of just the stats, I would be rooting for Frank Camacho probably, but he's really fighting a really tough guy in Drew Dober, who's got a lot more UFC experience. And Drew Dober's his most recent 2 losses were both to submission. He hasn't really been, lost any decisions or gotten knocked out or anything, and I don't think Frank Camacho's coming in here to try and submit him. Now, so that's why I'm picking Drew Dober to win this fight. But it's going to be a fucking fun fight. And really, I don't think anyone's losing this fight. These guys are probably both going home with $50,000 for fight of the night. Because that's what Frank Camacho brings to the table. And that's probably why he's getting this opportunity on Big Fox. So, gonna be a super dope fight. But I'm leaning toward Drew Dober to get the W. But we can expect fireworks in this fight. So, moving on to the next fight. This guy, Gregor Gillespie. Holy smokes, man. Like, I don't know what it is. He's 3-0 in the UFC, undefeated, and he's 31 years old. And so, you know, I don't want to say he's like got the potential to be the next Conor McGregor, like a Darren Till type situation. But man, if he was any fucking younger doing what he's doing right now, this guy has the potential to be a star. He's from New York, 10-0. His name is fucking Gregor. Yeah, Gregor. Like, get it? Conor McGregor. This motherfucker's name is literally Gregor. He's got the chest tats and shit. So I immediately always think Conor McGregor just when I see his name, and I know that's a little whatever, but also he's been finishing people. He's 3-0 in the UFC, a knockout, a submission, and so now he's going to be fighting Jordan Rinaldi, who's going to be a native at North Carolina. He's from North Carolina. But Gregor Gillespie, I think he's got some serious potential if he keeps up what he's doing. Just as far as he might be, somebody to keep your eye on. He's definitely on my radar. He's undefeated, as I said. So I'm going with Gregor to get this fight. He's also been beating higher level guys with more UFC experience. But Rinaldi is the North Carolina native, so we'll see if that crowd can energize him like the Boston crowd was doing when a lot of the Boston fighters were getting upsets. That's a very real possibility. We're going to have the home crowd on his side cheering for him. So we'll see how that happens. But I'm picking Gregor Gillespie to come in and get this W and continue his undefeated streak in the UFC. And I think after this fight, if Gregor gets this win in Rinaldi's home, he'll probably be looking at a ranked opponent in his next fight. Now, next, the co-main event is Dennis Bermudez versus Andre Fili. This is definitely going to be a fun fight, and it might be fight of the night if not for Frank Camacho versus Drew Dober, but it's definitely going to be a fun fight. Now, this was a hard fight to pick. Originally, I was leaning toward Andre Fili. He's coming off of a win over Artemis Lobavius, the GOAT, and anyone who beats Artem Lobov is probably a serious threat for the title. So that's why I was leaning toward Fili. But then, just looking at Dennis Bermudez, even though Dennis Bermudez is 2-4 in his last 6 fights, the guys he's lost to is a murderer's row. Ricardo Lamas, Jeremy Stevens, the Korean Zombie, and Darren Elkins. Like, Dennis Bermudez, his 2 wins aren't over the best guys. It was Kawajiri and Ronnie Jason. But he's only lost to, like, the best of the best. And I don't know if we could consider Andre Fili that yet. This is a funny, interesting fact about Andre Fili's professional UFC career. He's literally alternated wins and losses starting at his UFC debut. He started with a win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Now he's coming off of a win, so if we're going off of alternating, it would be his time for a loss. Now I know that doesn't have anything to do with it, but at the same time, Dennis Bermudez is the ranked 13th featherweight in the world, I believe. Coming into this fight, Andre Fili is unranked. So if Andre Fili can get this win, he will be moving into the rankings. But I'm picking and predicting Dennis Bermudez to get this win. Dennis Bermudez has shown strong wrestling. Andre Fili took Artem Lobov down 5 times in their fight, but that was really his most successful. He's really been with his wrestling according to the UFC fight metrics on UFC.com. As to in some of his previous fights, he was even taken down multiple times. And Dennis Bermudez, on the other hand, scored 4 or 5 takedowns. Now, their wrestling is probably honestly on par. I would say, Andre Fili training with Team Alpha Male, he hasn't been doing but getting better. And in this most recent performance, his wrestling looked really good. But Dennis Bermudez has really only lost to the best guys, some of the best guys in the UFC. So this is a real test for Andre Fili. But I'm leaning toward Dennis Bermudez. It's going to be a close fight and probably a really fun fight as well. Now, the main event of the night, man. I'm picking Derek Brunson because he's black. I'm just fucking around. I am picking Derek Brunson, but it's not because he's black. I've got a lot of reasons I'm picking Derek Brunson to win this fight. This is going to be an amazing fight. Now my dog wants out of the room, and I just let him in, and I told him, I know you're going to want out, but it's all good. Now watch, I let him out, and he's going to want back in. But we're about to talk about Derek Brunson versus Jacare. I'm picking Derek Brunson to win this fight. Let's go. Derek Brunson is 18-5 overall. He's 9-3 in the UFC. really 10-2 because his loss to Anderson Silva was very arguable, questionable in Brazil, and Anderson Silva got his hand raised. But I think a lot of people know that Derek Brunson won that fight, so he's arguably 10-2. Now, what's so super cool about this fight is Jacare is 7-2 in the UFC. Both of these guys' only 2 losses in the UFC are to Yoel Romero and Robert Whittaker, the current UFC middleweight champion. Now, of course, Derek Brunson has the loss to Silva, and Jacare's loss to Yoel Romero was also arguable. A lot of people gave that fight to Jacare. It was a split decision to Yoel Romero. So, man, both of these guys are 2 of the top middleweights in the world. Jacare is more of a legend, definitely, to the middleweight division, inside and outside of the UFC. He's fought beat Gegard Mousasi, fought Gegard Mousasi twice, fought Yoel Romero. He's even fought Derek Brunson before and beat him. This is a rematch. Jacare's fought Robert Whittaker. I mean, Jacare has fought the legends. But the thing about this fight is if this was 2 years ago, and this fight did happen like 4 years ago, but if this were 2 years ago, I might go with Jacare. The thing about this fight is I think Jacare is right on the outside of his prime, as Derek Brunson is like right in his prime. So now, and also Jacare did beat Derek Brunson in the past, but you have to keep in mind that it was in Strikeforce, and USADA wasn't even a thought back then. A lot of people say that, you know, Jacare has changed a little bit since then, but even if that's the case, which it may be, even if that is the case, Jacare has been fucking beating a lot of high-level guys in the UFC. Now, he did lose to Robert Whittaker most recently, and that was it looked very telling, as he was going for some takedowns and just getting shaken off, and then ended up getting TKO'd. But Jacare is definitely nothing to fuck with in this fight. It's not easy for me to pick, but I do believe Derek Brunson is probably one of the most underrated middleweights of right now. And I just mean, I think where he's at right now, could probably take on anybody in the top, even the champion. He lost to Robert Whittaker, but you have to keep in mind, when he lost to Robert Whittaker, he was on a 6-fight winning streak. Five of those most recent in that 6-fight winning streak were all first-round knockouts. So that was when the middleweight division was a little jammed up, and he was looking to skip Luke Rockhold, Chris Weidman, Yoel Romero, and Jacare and Gegard Mousasi. He was trying to skip all of them for a title shot by extending his first-round KO spree versus Robert Whittaker. So he got a little overzealous in that fight, trying to get another first-round knockout, and ended up getting finished himself, which, you know, halted his progress toward getting a title shot. But that doesn't change the fact Derek Brunson is still one of the best middleweights in the world right now. Very experienced, very athletic and explosive. I'm a big fan of Derek Brunson, and I think he's going to win this fight. Jacare's 38 years old. Derek Brunson's not a spring chicken himself, but he's 34 years old. But I still believe Derek Brunson, he's still very, very in his prime. I think Derek Brunson, not even toward the end. So I'm picking Derek Brunson to win this fight. But man, Jacare, of course, might have the grappling advantage if it gets, you know, as far as the jiu-jitsu is concerned. But man, one thing about Derek Brunson, like, think about this, like, he fought Yoel Romero three fights into the UFC. He lost that fight via TKO in the 3rd round, but he took down Yoel Romero like 3 or 4 times in that fight to 0. And Yoel Romero is a world-class wrestler. Derek Brunson did that. So now Jacare did arguably beat Yoel Romero as well, or he arguably beat Yoel Romero and he took him down 1 time. But still, for Derek Brunson to do that to Yoel Romero, to out-wrestle Yoel Romero, that's something that sticks out to me. So I'm picking Derek Brunson to win this fight in the main event. He'll probably be the underdog. He's the number 8th ranked middleweight. Jacare is the number 3 ranked middleweight. Gonna be a super dope fight. Great main event. Can't wait for this fight. Coming up next Saturday, I believe, and it's on Big Fox, we found out. So let the full-time family know what you think in the comments and what are your predictions. I'm out. And P.S. full-time family, I just wanted to make one last announcement on the giveaway. All you got to do is follow me on Twitter or social media, and I'm doing a full-time family premium t-shirt giveaway. There's only about 5 days left. I'm going to announce the winner. That way I got time to get your size before the 21-day Teespring campaign ends. So with that being said, make sure you follow me on Twitter or Instagram, and if you follow me on both, you got twice the chance to win. So with that being said, it is what it is. Now I'm out.
Bye. Felicia.